Yeah. I'm some loving. Let me see what you got, baby. So let me see you. Ursha, baby. I hear you. Yeah. Rock with me. It's all with me. So let me see.
It has become such a salacious society that we need more, constantly more and more to entertain us. To it's not just enough now to put up a photo. You must put up a photo where you're half naked. Okay,
yes,
well, if you're half naked, well, you must take it all off because. So where does it end? What more must we do to get people to pay attention to us? It's never ending. And we are in this space now where we don't have enough people saying, no, that's not necessary because the idea is that it's going to sell. And then it's self-fulfilling because then you get more money. The more salacious, the more people you have looking at your salacious material, the more money you get. And money equates to success and accomplishment and freedom.
And I think that's one of the things people hate about my page because I am, especially to women empowerment, I do say you are beautiful. You don't need to do this. You don't have to be that way. And then people say to me, it's impossible for somebody to be that happy all the time, or your page is boring because I'm not constantly doing selfies where I am taking provocative pictures and posting them or something else. They're like, all you talk about is inspiration and food, healthy eating. And I'm like, well, that's my passion. That's like what I want to brand myself, and I want to talk about branding in a little bit. Like, I want to brand myself as someone who is a humanitarian, who cares about others, who wants to uplift others, who wants to be an inspiration to young ladies and tell them, no, you don't have to wear that tight this or tight that. And if you do, I did when I was 18, 19, 20. That could be a phase. That's a phase. That's your journey if you did, but you don't have to.
And also it has to be more not so conscious about the attire, but more of the heart, what's in the person's heart. Because I feel a lot of times that there's this thin line. People would be judged based on what they're wearing and not what's in their heart. I know a lot of young ladies, and maybe someone may perceive that their attire to be provocative, but they're not taking the time to see what's in that person's heart, listen to them. And that's a situation almost like when a person would say, well, that person provoked me to do something wrong to them because of the way they were dressed. And I don't agree
That's
with that.
never right, no.
No, it isn't, and that's the thing, and I think it's all in context. I mean, you can go to the beach, and we have a tire there at the beach, and it's appropriate, I mean, it all depends on where you are. I mean, it's like the Internet now represents every possible thing that we can imagine, and again, that's all fine, but at the end of the day, it's what you are saying about yourself, and it is the imprint that you leave. And when you're really young, you don't really think about things like that. They matter as you age and become more mature and introspective about your life and why we're all here. So it's not my job to judge other people in terms of, as you just pointed out, one's individual journey. But when we look at our society, we have to make note of how it's progressing along. And we have to be able to look at the signpost along the way so that we can then make shifts as they are needed so that we can aid our society in being the best representation of ourselves as possible. So what people do and how they choose to do it, everyone has that individual right. But as a collective whole, we do have to pay attention in terms of what kind of a society we are going to be.
Okay. If we and I'm talking about for now myself and Diann, and if we decide to add on other women, because I believe in women empowerment,
yep.
How can we brand ourselves so that we can impact and be more, take it more seriously, instead of people just saying, okay, I'm only on here because I get to listen to an entertainer and take notes and know a few things that they like or may not like. Like, how can we brand ourselves so we actually make a big difference in an imprint?
Well, I think, first of all, branding, it's so interesting and funny that branding is now the new vogue term representing career and the expansion of career. So it's all about branding and how we're branding ourselves. And while we, bash the Internet a little bit in terms of that double-edged sword, it also provides a method for expansion and getting the word out in ways that we were not able to do before as a society. You had to hire a publicist and an entire professional team to write copy for you and then to promote that information, to sell that information. It was very costly. So one of the great things about the Internet is that we now have this tremendous access that we can use any way we want, and certainly in positive ways to promote who we are. With that being said, one of the things that you're doing already, and I always point out to people, you have to really appreciate what you've accomplished, because you have this particular show. There are a lot of people sitting at home wondering how they can do what you are doing right now, how they can get to this point right now. And because you've taken action, that is a really important thing. In fact, it's so important, it has a way of creating its own momentum. And so if you're wanting to then expand your brand, it reminds me basically of one of my favorite quotes, which is, "The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it, because boldness has genius, power, and magic." And that's by Goethe. And so you've begun that process. Now, you use all forms of social media as you are. You are interviewing people of note, people who have made certain achievements and accomplished certain goals in their lives. So you have aligned yourself in that way. You are following up and promoting those people, and in essence it's promoting you. You are also building a network of other like-minded women who are interested in the empowerment of young women and women of all ages and of all and different levels in life. So that network is profoundly important. The consistency of marketing and promoting yourself is really important. Also aligning yourself with men who also believe very much in the power of women and elevating them. And then you yourselves, as you continue to expand what you're doing and to write about the lives of these other people, create your own booklet, if you will. You can self-publish a book of inspiring quotes or quotes by people that you've interviewed. And so you then build a network of those people you've interviewed. Then there's a book, for instance, of quotes, and then you expand because you're tapping into their audience, their fan base, and you keep building on top of that.
How do we get them
and sharing and relating with other people? What's that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. How do we get them to, because a lot of people will, okay, I'm listening because we had Nathan Varney, I'll just mention him. They want to know what's going on with General Hospital or the ABC shows, which ones are coming and going. So they'll listen for that. Or they'll listen because you are Donnell's. Everybody loves Donnell because they think he's hot. So they want to know about Donnell. How do we get people to actually get the message? And I do get a lot of people that say, you know what? That interview you sent me, I listened to it in the entirety, and I received something for it. So how do we try to get on a bigger platform to do that? Because right now I feel like some people will somewhat listen, but right now, out of all the interviews, the first one we did was someone I felt should have gotten a lot of views and did not. But Donnell I'm glad Donnell got a lot because he was inspiring and I was able to exchange proverbs and different things with him. But most people, she was telling me, Diann was telling me, was because they were drawn to it because it was a bait photo too.
Yes,
Meaning
that
it
is
was
true.
a photo with him with his shirt off.
Yes, that is true because that is where we are. So, that is where we are in terms of the Internet and how people respond. There were some studies done very early on when the World Wide Web first originated, and just before it was immensely so widely popular, people could actually write a sentence or a quote, like on Twitter, for instance, and you would get a ton of responses. I remember early on Twitter, for instance, I would post things like, I'm having my morning coffee, and people responded to that. That was significant. But studies revealed that over time, that was no longer so important words. Then we needed sound. We needed images. And
now hashtag.
And now hashtag. And it was proven that if you embed an image with your message, you're going to increase your views exponentially. So in that marketing of what you were doing, yes, you got to have the sexy actors or the sexy personalities because people are interested in that. People are very visually stimulated. That is really important. And then great sound bites are really important because people want to believe for instance, when you go on the Internet and you're doing searches today, you see all these headlines saying, we didn't know these actors died. And then they'll show a picture of an actor that is alive. And you go, I didn't know John Goodman was dead. Click. And you go there, and you're looking for John Goodman, looking for the story, and you see all these other people, and you get to the end, and there's no John Goodman because he's not dead. He's alive. So that method of marketing in our modern society is also a carrot that dangles. But I also want to go back to the early days of Oprah Winfrey. And I don't know if you were around. I'm probably a little bit older.
I was around. I was just young. But, yeah, I remember her.
Well, I was in college, and it was just after her show became nationally syndicated after The Color Purple. And I saw The Color Purple when I was in college.
Yeah, I saw The Color Purple, too.
And so when she began, she was interviewing celebrities. And that was a draw, certainly, celebrities. And her message was finding out about them, what was going on about their lives. And that was really interesting at that time for all talk shows, to go behind the scenes, to know what made these people tick. And we were fascinated by that because we had never seen that before. And that evolved, and then she became her own significant personality. But she was always connecting to others and taking her windfall, her prosperity, and sharing it with others. So when you think about, again, and compare and contrast to what you were doing, building relationships with people, interviewing them, posting their photos, and using something that is really significant.
Music. We add music, too.
And music and something that is significant in terms of what they've said, that can really be important. And you take something that is provocative, because people do want to be stimulated in ways today that they were not last year. Last year we saw so many famous, well-known people die, one after another. It just seemed like every week you were like, who's next? And so what that did for me, it reminded me that tomorrow is not promised for any person. And because they were well known, we all got to share in that process of shock and grief and the realization that life is day by day. Now, I point that out because as we human beings evolve, we go through experiences that shock us sometimes. And once we've been shocked, we're no longer shocked the next time, or at least not as much. Once we've reached outrage, the next time we're not as outraged. So I say all that to say, in your marketing and in what you're doing, it does have to be something that is titillating, because people now are accustomed to shock and outrage. And so if it's just words or and if it's all feel good, no, they won't turn in. They've been trained by our news media not to. The news media highlights the worst of the worst on a daily basis. Who's been murdered? Who's stolen what? Who's kidnapped whom? And when they do have something positive, oh, it's Positive Friday. Oh, we've got a feel-good story today. It's one in a million. It's every once in a while. Oh, we're going to adopt a puppy today and tell you where you can go and adopt a puppy. That's our feel-good stories. And so and the newspapers are the same, inundated. Headlines are inundated with the worst of the worst. So as a society, that makes an impact, a tremendous impact. So, therefore, as you are marketing and expanding, the idea is to think, what gifts do you offer? What separates you? How do you connect? And how do you offer an element of surprise? And that's important also to the actor. We talk a lot about that in our acting classes when actors are working. Where is the element of surprise? Because if it is pat, meaning if you're just doing it by rote and doing the same thing over and again, doing what is expected, then people will not see that as a standout. They will when you catch them by surprise.
You Ursha, baby. All or nothing. So let me see it.